walked into a couple major labels and had them look me in the eye and say, oh, well, we'd sign you if you were a guy. Like literal concrete, you know, stuff people will say around town, and they're comfortable saying it because it's just kind of part of it now.
Let the girls play.
Let the girls play. It's time to let the girls play.
Put your hands together and please welcome the Song Suffragettes.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Phyllis Stark. I'm the senior editor at All Access Music Group, allaccess.com, and I want to welcome everyone here today and introduce this very, very talented panel that we have. First of all, to my left, this is Todd Cassidy, the founder of Song Suffragettes, which you just saw a little bit about in the video, and you're going to hear a whole lot more about in the next hour and a half. And to Todd's left is Kaylee Shore, who I'm very pleased to say just in the last week signed a record deal with Teamworks Records, which is going to release the deluxe version of her very critically acclaimed album, Open Book, later this year. She also hosts a podcast on the iHeart Radio Network and Bobby Bones' Nashville podcast network called Too Much to Say. Is that the right? Too Much to Say with Kaylee Shore. And new episodes of that post every Wednesday. And next to Kaylee, we have Candy Carpenter, who has a very interesting backstory. She grew up touring the Midwest with her family's gospel band, and then grew up backstage, essentially, at the Grand Ole Opry, where she spent her teen years touring with country music legend Jack Green. She lost my place here. In her 2019 single, The Astronaut, which you'll hear today, and the follow-up, Little Sparrow, showcased her unique talents, and both songs were produced by Grammy winner Brandi Carlile. Last year, she also appeared on NBC's Dolly Parton 50 Years at the Grand Ole Opry specials. This is Candy Carpenter. Hi. And on the very end, we have the very talented Emma White. And she has a song that you're going to hear today called Tenure Town, which just kind of encapsulates a lot of what we're going to talk about today, which is the challenges of female artists in particular in getting a record deal in this town. But she was smart enough to take matters into her own hands and founded an indie label called White House Records, as a home not only for her own music, but with plans to sign other female artists as well. And the label is dedicated to diversity and inclusion, which is something we certainly need a lot more of in the country music industry. So welcome, Emma White. And we're going to kick things off today with a performance from Kaylee, who's going to sing her song, Fight Like a Girl.
So I wrote this song after playing Song Suffragettes for a few years and noticing the climate of what it was like for women in Nashville. There was a particular situation where a country radio programmer said that if you want to get good ratings, take women out, and women are the tomatoes of the country music salad, not the lettuce. The men are the lettuce, and that displeased me greatly, so I wrote a song about it, and then ironically, it was my first song on country radio. So this is called Fight Like a Girl.
He's calling out my name, he says I'm just a featherweight. He thinks the slightest breeze could blow me over. But what he doesn't know is I've got a slingshot and a stone, and I can win with no one in my corner. So don't you even try to hold me back. I got my high heels on with my boxing gloves. I can knock you out punch. I'm perfume sweet and whiskey strong. I damn sure ain't no underdog. I might fall down, but I get back up. I shine brightest when the going's tough. You say I can't, well darling, watch me. You can't stop me, 'cause I fight like a girl. I'm little, but I'm loud. I just wanna make my mama proud. And you can tell without a doubt that I'm her daughter. She raised me to believe that I can be anything. So when you push me, I just push back harder. I got my high heels on with my boxing gloves. I can knock you out with a 1-2 punch. I'm perfume sweet and whiskey strong. I damn sure ain't no underdog. I might fall down, but I get back up. I shine brightest when the going's tough. You say I can't, well darling, watch me. You can't stop me, 'cause I fight like a girl. Fight hard, I fight tough, I fight fair. Won't stop fighting till I get there. No, I ain't afraid to cry, 'cause everybody's gotta feel something sometimes. Fight hard, I fight tough, I fight fair. I won't stop fighting till I get there. No, I ain't afraid to cry. I ain't afraid to fight. I got my high heels on, my boxing gloves. I can knock you out with a 1-2 punch. I'm perfume sweet and whiskey strong. And I damn sure ain't no underdog. I might fall down, but I get back up. I shine brightest when the going's tough. You say I can't, well darling, watch me. You can't stop me, 'cause I fight like a girl. Fight hard, I fight tough, I fight fair. I won't stop fighting till I get there. No, I ain't afraid to fight, 'cause I fight like a girl.
Kaylee Shore, everybody. That story that she referenced, that Kaylee just referenced as an inspiration for that song about the radio consultant who referred to female artists as the tomatoes in the salad, the garnish, essentially. Massive galvanizing force for the women of country music, the women in the music industry in general. Very controversial. And I don't know, maybe ultimately he did everybody a favor because it drew a lot of attention to an issue that, frankly, I've been writing about since the 90s. It's something that kind of ebbs and flows but never stops being a problem. There's never really been sort of a permanent revolution that's fixed it.
On country radio, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
in country radio it lives, the percentage of female artists on the charts lives between, 15 and 20, really, more or less.
On a good day.
Yeah.
On a good day.
Yeah, so it's been as low as 13 recently, and that's been happening since when? 2000?
Oh, or sooner,
Yeah.
or before that
Yeah.
even. Yeah, I think
So
I wrote my
that's-
first article about it in the mid-90s, but I promise it was going on before that. That just happened to be when,
So
when I took
there's been a
notice.
super discrimination problem against females since the 90s in country music here in Nashville. So it's something worth, fighting about.
Yeah, for sure. But there's forces at work, which one of those is what we're here to talk about today, which is Suffragettes, which was founded by Todd 6.5 years ago as basically a collective of female artists that perform every Monday night at the Listening Room Cafe here in Nashville. Why don't you talk a little bit about the origin and why you, a dude, not a female artist in town, but why you felt like you had to jump in and do something?
Well, it's funny. I get asked that a lot, and I always say that it's a weird optic for a guy to have started Suffragettes, right? It's like ideally it would have been a female, but I worked with a whole lot of female artists in my career. I've been in the music industry forever. So we were talking about it earlier, since the early 90s, right? And I've worked with everybody from the Dixie Chicks to Carrie Underwood to Taylor Swift, and I've just found myself having a penchant for female voices. I always jokingly say it's like, I'm a dude, I get that perspective, it's boring, right? It's like it's always been more interesting to me. So I've always leaned toward female voices. And then, but the real answer to the question is I have 2 daughters. And it's like, when I was coming up, it was like you had Reba and Faith and Shania. And, in the early 90s, it was never 50-50 proposition, male versus female on radio. But I think it was 30 at some point, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten close to that since then, right? So, when I was coming up, a little girl could have heard This One's for the Girls, right, by Martina McBride. And like those voices and those perspectives aren't there now. And I was like, it just kind of ticked me off. And I was like, what can we do? Because what you would hear often was, there just aren't enough good females in town. And I was like, that's bullshit. It's like there are a lot of them. Let's give them a place to be, a place to perform, a place to like commiserate, right?
Right.
And and we've had some great success stories out of that because we've hopefully helped nurture people at a very young stage, early stage of their process, and gone on. We've had 20 women go on to get record deals, and we've had 40-something get publishing deals. So it's like, we feel like we're contributing, but the problem persists.
Right. That's great. Yeah. I mean, when I moved to Nashville in 1995, there was Mary Chapin Carpenter on the radio. There was Patti Loveless, Kathy Mattea, the Judds, Trisha Yearwood. There was really no shortage, and it motivated me. It was part of the reason I moved here. I thought, what a great town for music and female voices in general. And then it kind of all went to a screeching halt. But let me ask the ladies. You've been part of Song Suffragettes for several years now, since the beginning for some of you. And tell me about what you feel like it's done for you and for just female artists in general in terms of just collaborations and friendships.
I mean, this right here, for sure. I mean, we all met through Song Suffragettes. Candy and I wrote like a third of my album together. The song we wrote together, F You Forever, is essentially what got me my record deal. And just being able to be surrounded by intelligent women. I mean, I know all of us have had really serious conversations. I remember distinctly a conversation with Emma a couple years ago, just talking like about, and just knowing you're not alone in that is really important because it can be so isolating. And when you have a culture, even outside the music industry, that's pitting women against each other, from who wore it best to you have to hate your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, like you can feel so alone in your feelings, even though most women are living a similar experience to you, but it's like can be so isolating. So having that group where you can immediately like just plug in to these other female voices and grow and learn, like it's made me not just a better performer just from the repetition of hosting the show and playing it and whatnot, but also just made me a better woman because I'm surrounded by people who like challenge me to be better and change my ingrained perspective on other women that you're kind of set up for when you enter this world.
Similar experience, Candy?
There's not only one place at the top of the mountain. You're climbing it with all of your friends this way. And when I first played Song Suffragettes, I had a major label record deal. And then about a year into it, I didn't anymore. And it remained a home for me and a place for me to find my voice again, because honestly, after going through something like that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. So having an opportunity to try out songs and then having friends to talk to about it, it's an interesting dynamic in a friendship where maybe one friend is here and one friend is here, but you still know what those highs and lows feel like. So you're still able to be there for each other in those good and bad times. I don't think I would have made it through some of these times without the friendships I made at Song Suffragettes.
And how about you? Emma, similar experience?
Yeah, I think everything they're saying, and also like there were definitely some moments at Song Suffragettes that could have only happened there because there were no other stages for us. Like my song Tenure Town, like that got traction because you guys filmed it and posted it, and then Rolling Stone wrote about it. So it's like that wouldn't have happened otherwise because there aren't really spotlights put on what females are writing about necessarily. So just to add to what they're saying already, but like career-wise, it has helped, So
That's one
you.
of the most viewed. That's one of the most viewed videos on the Songs of Roots YouTube channel, I think. Yeah, it's just like such a chill-inducing performance.
Well, it was so weird because I had never performed it, and I was actually afraid of performing it, and then I did, and it was kind of this like, the whole room sort of gave me feedback for the first time on that song.
That's happened to me. There's
It's
so
crazy.
many times too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a song Candy and I wrote on my album called Gatsby, and it discusses everything from like daddy issues to antidepressants. And I was not excited to play it for the first time, but I did. And Candy, did background vocals and provided moral support. But I like remember looking out in the audience and seeing that people were like welcoming that message and being like, oh wow, I don't need to be afraid of this song. And the only reason I think we were afraid of those songs is because they were so true.
I think it says a lot about the really healthy culture at Song Suffragettes, honestly, that we aren't scared to take those risks on the Song Suffragettes stage, and we know if something doesn't go over, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something being filmed. I should mention that the YouTube channel for Song Suffragettes has more than 3 million views, maybe higher than that at this point. So it's, when you come to, I know we're talking to an international audience, when you come to Nashville, it's a Monday night must see, but until you can get to Nashville, until you can travel safely, check out the YouTube channel because there's some really, really great content.
And we live stream our show every Monday night.
Perfect.
At 6 p.m. Central Time.
So
wherever you are. 6
years in, you've accomplished some goals, I'd imagine, but what else do you kind of hope to accomplish with this group?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, it's frustrating that the percentages on radio haven't changed in any significant way. That's very frustrating. But like I said, there are wins with more of these women getting record deals and more of these women getting publishing deals. And, I think the one thing I took to saying a couple of years ago was awareness is an all-time high. Like when we started it, everybody was just ostriching. That's what I keep, like the whole situation. Just like put your head in the sand, ignore it. It'll work itself out, right? And I think that there are enough of us out there that just started banging this drum. And so the town, as an industry is very aware of the problem. The solutions haven't made themselves clear, but, that's something we're working on. I mean, for us, I think, people ask us all the time, like, why don't you tour it? And I'm like, well, I don't think people will understand what it is if we show up in Poughkeepsie or, or whatever it is. But so we're, some things we're working on is, some television exposure would be fantastic because then we not only can make this thing bigger and help these women earn more touring, but it's kind of a promotional tool that skips radio, right? So I think television is a big goal, and I don't know what that is, whether it's music-based or unscripted based or whatever, but that's a big goal that we're working on. And then touring. And we were supposed to do our first UK tour back in, the end of May? April. And COVID, did that in. So, there's all intentions to get that back on the road and start doing some touring. But the big goal is, I think, a television opportunity.
As a lead-in to the video that we're going to see, the Time's Up video, I'd love to just hear from each of the three of you about some specific experiences that you've had in the country music industry of doors either being slammed in your face or opportunities that didn't come your way specifically because that you were a woman. And you just told one a minute ago about a label person telling you, I would sign you if you were a dude. And we've all heard the thing, we already have a female on our label, a female, as if there's a quota of some sort. But if you could just kind of just share specific examples.
Yeah, give me a minute to think of something I can share. I'm actually serious.
I have one readily available.
I knew you did. Which is so sad.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, like it was the most crushing and specific example was going to a publisher. I went to Berklee College of Music. I studied songwriting. I majored in music and writing at one of the top music schools. And I came to Nashville, met with one of the biggest publishers, and this guy told me, you know how to write a song. We don't need to teach you how to write a song, but we don't need female songs. And that was it. It was like, and he assumed that I couldn't write for a guy. So it was just kind of like, oh my God, my dream publisher just kind of completely discriminated against me. And I told people, but it was like, well, he's not lying that the market just isn't, ripe for female voices. But I just think, I don't know. I'm just going to keep going.
Can you imagine being in any other field and going into an interview and having someone, because I had that same exact experience after meeting with a record label. I think Todd had a follow-up call and they were like, well, we think she's a superstar and she'd kill it on radio tour, but we just can't sign another girl right now. And I'm like, if you're like, her songs aren't there yet, or her performance isn't there yet, or like she just needs to work on this, X, Y, Z, that I can work with, because that means like I can fix it. But to just be like, yeah, you know what, you're great for the job, but we already hired a female doctor, so sorry, you're out. That is such a clear violation of workplace laws. And I don't think there's this entitlement that like we want an opportunity because we're a woman. It's like, I fully believe in the concept of a meritocracy, but unfortunately people aren't doing that. So if you're saying, hey, you're the best person for the job, but we can't do this, that's the opposite of that. So
I have so many stories. I mean, it's probably better that I tell them to you like later over 5 to 7 cocktails. But one I will share, 'cause you ladies have done a great job touching on like what happens to all of us. It's again, there's more than one place at the top of the mountain. I have heard before, sorry, we signed you. I know we signed you, but we're not going to be putting money into you because we're already putting it into another female act. So sometimes even once you get the deal, that doesn't mean you're going to get the resources that you need to build your career. But I think one of the most screwed up things that happened to me for a while is I have this ex. And every good story starts that way, right? I had this ex, and he was a prominent writer, and he kind of really got in my head about my ability to back myself up on guitar. And he said, girls don't do that. You don't need to be doing that. You need to be up on stage just singing and looking hot. And ew. And I love playing guitar, and it's such a big part of who I am now, but I really did not feel a lot of confidence in doing that. And Song Suffragettes kind of made me learn to be my own accompanist.
Learning the covers every week and just putting ourselves out there, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, one positive story that we had happen this year is that Warner Music Nashville got both Ingrid Andress and Gabby Barrett #1 singles pretty much back to back, and they were not competing against each other. I mean, they literally were working them both at the same time and had equal amount of success with both of them. And I thought that was, I mean, if we're looking for the little moments of positivity, we'll take it. And I just wanted to add to what Emma was saying about, being told about female voices. It's such a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if there's more male artists, right? So they're looking for more male songs, which means that fewer female songwriters are going to get signed because their voices are not going to be as represented in the cuts that they're getting. And it's like this whole little catch-22 that just kind of swirls around.
And they also don't feel the responsibility that it's in their hands to develop that lane,
True.
know?
Right.
So.
Well, a big part of, Maren Morris's career was her manager, Janet Weir, but then also Big Yellow Dog, like getting on board so early in her career. And between the two of them, they really did the A&R heavyweight or like the heavy lifting on that side of things. And that's how you create a superstar. Like Maren is, you find these champions and they work together with their resources. And then Sony, the song was already doing really well when they signed her, So like all the hard work had been done. And it's really interesting. It's so true about the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about activism, specifically in the music business, but this is probably a good time to introduce the next video, which is a song called Time's Up that Kaylee co-wrote, and more than 20 of the Song Suffragettes recorded the song together, as you'll see, and it speaks to a moment. Obviously, we're all familiar with the Time's Up movement, but talk just a little bit about how that whole project came together. Whoever wants to take that, Todd or Kaylee.
Well, there was it was the same week of the Golden Globes when all the women wore black, and like the Time's Up legal defense fund was really at the top of the news with the #MeToo movement. Like, it was like all very fresh. And we had a big girls' night over at one of the Song Suffragettes' house, and we watched the Golden Globes, and we all dressed up in black and like drank wine and had a really good time. And it was really inspiring, and I think all of us had this moment where we were like, oh my gosh, we're watching history happen. And I had a write with Lacey Green, who's another Song Suffragette, a couple days later, and I had this idea to write this song, and it came out, and you know, obviously I really wanted it to be heartfelt and intentional and not zeitgeisty or, you know, pandering or anything, but we'd had such vivid experiences with it. I felt like the song just wrote itself because it was all just there swirling around in our heads. And I played it for Todd, and him and the team at Song Suffragettes had this idea to make a video, and we called up 22, 23 girls, I think, and filmed this music video, and it was 12 degrees. All three of us were there. We're literally walking on ice on this random like farm road in like north of Nashville out in the country, and wearing high heels, trying not to fall. It was this ridiculous thing, just 20 girls looking really hot but freezing their butts off.
It was freezing.
And it felt a lot like the music industry in general, because we're like, wow, you can't show your emotions. Like, you have to look really good and act like you're not about to fall.
When a video becomes a metaphor.
Literally. But then it did super well, and we actually ended up, I think to date we probably raised more, but we got to get one of those big giant checks and give it to the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund for $10,000.
Yeah, all the proceeds from downloads and streams of the song went directly to the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund, because we're like, it was a moment, and we wanted to capture the moment, and that was the best way to do it. Is just, you know, I think even though it was cold, I do think everybody had a good time.
We did.
We had this big van, or like a, what was it, like a those
Sprinter van.
yeah, and everybody was like
Little
crammed
mini
into it. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Remember when you could be that close to people?
Yeah.
There were literally 20 girls in a very small room,
R.I.P.
which seems like a different world now.
It seems like a lot longer ago than it was.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to watch that video now, and now that Kaylee's told that story, you're all going to be like looking at their feet to see what kind of heels they have on.
Goosebumps.
Look for the ice, but try to focus on the words, because it's an important song.
Time's up for the ruthless, the wicked and the vain. Time's up for the cheaters, 'cause now the game has changed. It's been a long time coming, there's a new day dawning, gonna stop you running today. The wait's over for the patient, the humble and the brave. Now the way it is becomes the way it was. Yeah, you always lose when you fight in love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we've waited long enough. Our time is here, our time is now, our time has come. Time's up for the shadows about to meet the light. Time's up for the castles built on sand and spite. Rome is burning, and one thing's for certain: the guilty are nervous tonight. And we aren't waiting anymore for the moon to turn the tides. Now the way it is becomes the way it was. Yeah, you always lose if you fight in love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we've waited long enough. Our time is here, our time is now, our time has come, and your time is up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking, 'cause the time's up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking, 'cause the time's up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking, 'cause the time's up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking. Now the way it is becomes the way it was. Yeah, you'll always lose if you're fighting love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we've waited long enough.
You're on.
Okay. Welcome back. Sorry, we're just having a little fun here. I want to talk about music activism. Obviously, leading out of that song, it's a perfect time to talk about that. Social media is an interesting thing. Some people, especially in the country music industry, are afraid to say anything. And I would say that's probably the majority of people. And then there's the ones, and we all know who they are, who speak their mind and they catch flack for it. Even sometimes for the most innocuous comments. But just talk a little bit about social media, but also just activism in general, and why you think it's important to not just shut up and sing, to make your voice be heard. Let's start with you, Kelly.
Well, I think, this year has been so pivotal, and I've seen so many people start to speak up who hadn't in the past, because I think we've just reached this boiling point where we're seeing how divided and ugly America kind of is right now. I think that's pretty safe to say. And I personally have become more outspoken. I have never been like an apolitical person by any means, but I've decided to pick my battles, and I think it's important as an artist to find the things that are very, very important to you and educate yourself on those things, so when you're speaking about them you have as little missteps as possible, because you are under a microscope and you are having people be ultra critical of you. So the worst thing you could possibly do is misrepresent a cause or get something incorrect, and then everybody has more of a reason to jump onto you. So I try to pick the things that are really, really important to me, and that usually ends up being any sort of injustice towards any marginalized group. It's kind of my passion. And second to that is animal activism, and I adopted a dog from an animal testing lab, so I'm very outspoken about that. And people will find ways to attack you about anything. Like, it's just absolutely crazy. And this year has definitely been hard. I mean, around the time that I went to a Black Lives Matter protest with Candy, and I must have gotten like 500 unfollowers from me posting a picture there. And that's like really frustrating. I also posted something the other day just about something that had been happening within the LGBTQ community, and I got dozens of messages being like, ew, I'm unfollowing you now, blah, 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 blah. Someone called me a liberal Hollywood elite, and I was like, oh my God, do you think I'm Hollywood?
Thank you.
And I know, I was
is
like,
what
you
got
think
me.
I'm elite? Wow. Like eating ramen, like in sweatpants. But I just think, like, for me, Fight Like a Girl is a song about feminism. Like, that was my first single. I've never once in my career not been that way. So when people are shocked that my beliefs align with my music, it just blows my mind. I'm like, have you not been listening to the things I've had to say? And thankfully, Todd's my manager, and he's very supportive of me speaking out, and so is my publicist, and I try to do everything with intention, but it's still scary. No matter how educated you are about a topic or how much it comes from a good place, there's always going to be people who are angry at you, and it's terrifying. It's never fun, but I feel like it's very important for me to do it.
Yeah, I'll just speak to it for a second. It's like, unfortunately, you have to second guess honesty, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, why do we live in a world where we have to second guess honesty? And that's a pretty frustrating thing. So, I mean, look, there have certainly been times where I've been like, oh, probably shouldn't have posted that. And I hate that, right? It's like, I'm not happy about having that reaction, but it's like, that's the world we live in. You can't, if you're public facing, which all of you are, you have to consider these things. And it's really unfortunate. And only the bravest do, right? Because most of them go the super coward route and are like, just don't say anything that's going to piss off anybody ever for the rest of your life, right? And I think that makes mediocre artistry. So that's my opinion, but it's, I'm not the one on the line, right? So it's easy for me to say.
My opinion as well is like, I want to speak to a place where I can convince someone who disagrees with me. Because if I'm just yelling at people who agree with me about who can agree with each other louder, that doesn't change anything. So I try to always come at it from a place of compassion. However, to that point, I don't care if a racist listens to my music. I don't really, you know.
Some unfollows you should be really
Some
proud of.
unfollows I'm really excited about. I'm like, thank you. So when it comes to speaking up about stuff like that, like even if I did lose a fan, it's like, good. They need to go do something else and figure out their problems.
And you mentioned that they never go quietly into the night. They always make sure to let you know that they're going to unfollow you.
They light their hair on fire, and there they go.
The phrase "shut up and sing" is infuriating to me as the lover of the English language because it's not possible.
It's literally
you
impossible.
cannot. You could say "shut up and hum."
An
As a lover of
oxymoron.
the English.
How do you close your mouth? And so, you know, and I've gotten into that debate with people. That's how bad I am. I'm like, well, that's not actually humanly or physically possible to do. And that doesn't help. But I've seen people on Twitter really upset at Rage Against the Machine, going, you know, I don't like your politics. And they're like, what, like, have you ever listened to our songs?
Our whole thing is politics.
Our band name? Yeah, like,
But I think that's why it's so important for us to be honest. You know, I want everyone to feel comfortable at my show. Not racist people, but I want everyone else to feel like they have a home at one of my shows. And you know, learning to be honest and really be yourself is absolutely terrifying, because I think, you know, especially sometimes female artists are really encouraged not to do that. There are elements of my personality I've only recently started unleashing onto the world and really being genuine about. And every time I do it, it terrifies me. Every time I post something that the inner child, that the real me would love, I get nervous. And I'm hoping to get to the point in my career where that doesn't happen anymore. And if somebody sends me a message and tells me I suck, it doesn't hurt my feelings. Because I got to be real, it does.
yeah.
If you get a message from somebody that says you suck, you can't sing, you're stupid, you know, you're wrong, I mean, like, you're still going to feel that. Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's why I call her all the time. Dump my anxieties onto my best friend. That's what you do.
It's mutual. It's okay. It evens out.
Yeah, I mentioned too that I'm going to let you talk in a second, but the fear comes from a real place. You know, I'm not dogging on artists that aren't brave enough to speak their minds, because 2 words, Dixie chicked.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what that means. You know, you speak your mind, you get your records burned, and you lose followers, and, you know, potentially lose your whole career. And so it's a scary thing. And I think it's worse now than it was when the Dixie Chicks did that. So, you know, for the artists like this that are brave enough to speak up now, it's like more important than ever, and it's also braver than ever, because it's a totally different time. Emma, I'm sorry.
No, I think a lot of us grew up loving the Dixie Chicks, and watching what happened to them go down the way it did was really, as someone who is from Baltimore, Maryland, and moved to the South for the first time, and after post Dixie Chicks saga, like, I became very afraid to be honest about anything that I had an opinion on. It was even now I question everything I post, because we've seen the repercussions. It can be like completely obliterating to a career, and it's so unfortunate. And I think, Todd, what you said, like, second guessing honesty, is like, that is so wrong in and of itself. So it's like, I guess you just have to, like, be brave. And I think a lot of the issues lately are more so about, like, human issues, and I feel like people make everything political, but I think, like, the human issues are the most important to speak about.
Yeah, no
like,
one's arguing over tax policy.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, and nobody cares about my opinion on that. Like, really, like, but when it comes to human rights, like, the fact that they're politicized at all is so frustrating.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, people, like, the comments I'll get will be like, I wish you weren't so political. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just saying that, like, you know, black men should feel safe on the street. That's not political. Like,
No, it's just human rights.
yeah.
And it shouldn't have to be a brave thing
No.
to say that.
No.
It's about what's doing what's right, and, you know, posting a few things about human rights, and and Black Lives Mattering and the safety of the LGBTQ plus community and the safety of Indigenous people is the right thing to do, and it's nothing compared to what marginalized people have to deal with every day.
Yeah.
So we should all be doing it.
Well, and then I think that there's also the, like, you know, people will be like, well, you question, like, why I care about things like that, and be like, well, it doesn't affect you. But both my parents are immigrants. My sisters grew up on a Native American reservation. They're my half-sisters, and I saw up close how marginalized those people are and how oppressed they are and how just from the moment they're born, they have so much stacked against them. And the things that my dad had to go through when he was growing up, you know, being from another country, and all the things that he's had to overcome. And I'm like, no, I actually have some pretty firsthand experience about this stuff. And that's kind of my point too, about just speaking about what you know and what you can really, you know, but using my privilege, because nobody knows that my parents are immigrants because I'm white. And so I have that privilege there, and nobody's like accusing me of, you know, needing to go back to my country. But if I had a different skin color, people would say that. People say that about second generation Americans all the time, and it's just so frustrating. So because I have that, I want to be able to speak up for the people who don't have that either platform or privilege.
Well, let's take a minute to listen to some more music. And just going back to what we were talking about before about the challenges that women face in this industry, I think one of my favorite songs that sort of encapsulates that whole issue is Tenure Town from Emma White.
Thank you so much. So I wrote this with two guys, actually. And I knew that I wasn't crazy when I said they don't play girls anyway in the song. And they were like, you should totally sing that. Like, but we actually weren't going to put it in the final version, and we did, so. This dog and pony show, I don't really know if I've got what it takes. First you sell your soul, then you hit the road, another ass to kiss, a hand to shake. They don't hear a hit yet, so they don't give a shit yet, and they don't play girls anyway. When you're all in, there ain't no way out. You keep saying any date now, but how long this takes is anybody's guess. And no, it ain't how bad you want it. You're just praying for a moment. Yeah, you still might be an overnight success. Pay your dues, wait your turn, no guarantees. This is all I've learned after 12 years in a 10-year town. Try to fit the mold, that's how this story goes. Be just like them, but just like you. Forget what got you here, 'cause that won't work this year. Don't be too young, too old, or too brand new. Don't think no one would notice if I went back home, but when you're all in, there ain't no way out. You keep saying any date now, but how long this takes is anybody's guess. And no, it ain't how bad you want it. You're just praying for a moment. Yeah, you still might be an overnight success. Pay your dues, wait your turn, no guarantees. Is all I've learned after 12 years in a 10-year town. They told you they don't get it, now they're taking all the credit. When you're all in, there ain't no way out. You keep saying any date now, but how long this takes is anybody's guess. And no, it ain't how bad you want it. You're just praying for a moment. Yeah, you still might be an
overnight success. Pay your dues, wait your turn, no guarantees is all I've learned after 12 years in a 10-year town. After 12 years in a 10-year town.
At her after I sang it for the first time. That's so weird. That just popped in my head. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
I mean, every time I hear that, it's just like, it's so real. Thank you for writing that song. It's really remarkable.
Thank you.
It gives me the same feeling as "Right Through You" by Alanis Morissette. Do you know the bridge to that song? Oh my gosh, there's this part of it, and this is like this. I have a playlist called "Wallowing" that I listen to whenever I'm upset about the music industry, and your song's on it. And that's what I listen to when I'm like getting to feel too much. But it's a line that's like, now that I'm Miss Thing, now that I'm a zillionaire, you scan the credits for your name and wonder why it's not there. And I like love that because she put it on Jagged Little Pill before she knew that Jagged Little Pill would be what it was, and she just had that feeling and being able to sing that. I know, but it's like it just makes me feel so good.
We're really into the Enneagram, and that's how I know you're an Enneagram 7 and I'm a 4, because I don't want to hear music when I'm upset about music. I will lock myself in my bedroom in silence.
Nope, I lock myself in my bedroom and I listen to Emma.
I'm not going to do that, but I'll call you and let you talk me down off the ledge.
Well, I love that song, and it's a great, I think, opportunity to talk about sort of reinventing this town to work for you instead of against you. I think none of you have really ever had the opportunity of having the big machine, as it were, the big Nashville hit-making machine working for you. And so in your case, Kelly, you know, after knocking on every door in Nashville, you signed with a New York-based label. And Emma, I wanted to talk about you started your own label. You did your own thing. What was the origin, and how scary was that for?
Honestly, it had been a dream of mine for a long time, but I never thought I would have the opportunity as soon as I did, because, it also didn't sound smart to do it first. It sounded smart to like have, you know, a couple hit songs, then start a label. But it was really out of necessity, because I just kept having the same conversation over and over, and it was like, time is passing, and I'm not getting any younger. And like, my dad actually gave me a book about female entrepreneurship for my birthday. He came to Nashville, and they like never come to Nashville, but they came to Nashville, and my whole family did. And he gave me this book. He's like, yeah, I just thought of you. And it's called Leapfrog. And it was all about like starting a business and how like women-owned businesses operate. And, you know, like this one woman just really inspired me, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I have to do, because I just kind of accepted like I'm never going to find that dream opportunity because people don't want me to, you know, at just every conversation I was having. So I reached out to a friend who is a really successful woman in business. She like works in Australia and here in the States. She's just like always has blown me away. And I wasn't going to text her because it's like hard to ask for help, but I was just kind of like, I am running into this weird, bizarre issue and I need someone to talk to. And so we went and got coffee, and I was really only expecting to like chat with her through it. Like, what should I do? Like, I think it's discrimination. What is going on? But anyway, so I met with her, and she like immediately wanted to get involved. And I had already pitched the idea to like a VC fund, and they turned me down, and it was for women. So I was just kind of like talking to her casually, and I think the stars just aligned, and it was the right fit. So then we just started.
Well, I want to touch on something you said, because it triggered me a little bit.
Yeah.
The age thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, were you like afraid? Well, I remember being 25 and going, oh no, the clock's ticking.
Oh,
I'm getting old.
I just turned 26 and I was like, well, there's the pasture. I'm heading out there.
I'm going to turn 34 this year. I remember when I was 25 and I hadn't gotten a record deal yet. I made a deal with myself, and I said, well, when I'm 30, I'm going to quit and do something else. Well, that didn't happen. Obviously, I'm still doing it. But I think that women in their 30s need to show other women in their 30s. It's not over for us.
I mean, there's, and this is not me, like, talking trash about them, but there are men well into their 40s and 50s singing about drunk texts and being single, and they have, like, children that, like, can probably drink alcohol. And they're, like, you know, because there's no, but if a woman was doing that, it would be weird, and people would say something about it, but it's like.
Which is why there should be.
Right, I know. I'm like, I hope I'm sending drunk texts for the rest of my life.
Oh, you will.
Need that.
I know your style.
It does occur to, like, you think about it, like, there's no woman in their 40s, like, there's no Luke Bryan equivalent of a woman. And it's, not that that's who you're talking about, because I actually don't know, but it could be. I don't know. But it is interesting. Wait, what? Did I just say the wrong?
As you were.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah, I think like we just have to like write our own stories, like, because sometimes that's the only card we have to play.
That was what was so great about Gretchen Wilson, you know, but there is no Gretchen Wilson equivalent right now. And I think there is this expectation that, you know, when you're a mom, you sing songs about being a mom, but women are always constantly, people are trying to distill them into one thing or another and finding whatever their dominant personality trait is or whatever that is, and then just making them only that when you can be so many different things. And if you listen to a man's album, it actually really, a good album will cover several different things and topics and whatnot. And I think women are, you know, learning to own that. But when you talk to somebody on the business side of the things, they'll try to be like, so what's your like thing? And I'm like, human experience.
I know.
Or you go into a meeting and maybe the second to third, because it's never the first question.
Oh,
but maybe the second to third question is, how old are you, by the way? Just curious. And you can, when I tell people, sometimes I can see their faces fall completely off onto the floor. You know, they look disappointed.
So
thank you. I really try. I try to keep myself up. No, but
I'm actually making more of a point, to be honest. I just turned 32, and now I'm making a point to really own it.
Be proud of it.
Because I'm like, and I have really bad days where I'm like, because when I was 16, I remember this like talent exec guy coming up to me and he was like, you have like a little bit more time left. When I was 16.
Oh, I heard stuff like that too. Or they'd be like, you're so good for 16, and you're like, okay, so what happens when I turn 17?
That happens too. When you start, a lot of us start this so young as teenagers, and we really think it's going to happen for us when we're teenagers because we see it the rare occasions when it does work. But you know, that's not everybody. It's not a fairy tale, and odds are you're going to be in your 20s still hustling. And you're going to have picked up all those insecurities, being a little girl and then not being one anymore. No one's going to come up and go, wow, you're so great for your age when you're 25 years old.
You're so good for 34.
Thank you. I'm adequate for 34.
But you know what? Then when it starts all over again, when they're like, oh my God, you're so good for 55.
I have 1 month left till 34, so let's just go with 33 while I have it. But I don't want to get up every morning and think about that because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to anyone but
I personally find with songwriters as well as like, you know, I want to hear songs from people who've lived a life and have life experience and have been through things. Like sometimes it can be borderline. I mean, honestly, I go back and I listen to my own songs singing about heartbreak from when I was like 20, 21, and I'm like, you thought you knew. And I get like annoyed with my past self. I'm like, you had no idea. Why are you singing about something you don't understand? And I think that that's really true, you know? Yeah. So I think that music is like wine, and it gets better with age.
Katie, you mentioned early on that you had a record deal, and then you didn't have a record deal. How do you pivot from that and kind of just move on with your career and reinvent yourself?
I'll let you know when I do. Well, you know, it's weird to find out that you have the freedom to do whatever you want, especially, you know, I've been in the entertainment industry since I was a little girl. I started touring as a teenager. Didn't really finish high school, just I did this. And I found that I always had somebody telling me who they thought I should be any given week. I was even told by one particular executive that I needed to be more like Gretchen Wilson if I wanted to have a single go to radio. And I'm from Michigan, you know, and I'm a huge Gretchen Wilson fan, but I also think that what made her so remarkable and makes her so remarkable is that she is completely honest and true to herself. And I think that out of fear, sometimes people in the industry will direct you down a certain path because they've seen it work and they think they can make it work again. And it's like a lack of trust in the artist, a lack of trust in letting the artist know who they are and trusting that they do. I've seen that time and time again. And then I kind of lost hold on my identity a little bit, going down those different roads. I'm glad it happened because I think that now I'm really leaning in even harder to who I am, and I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of what I've come through, and I actually just started this weird band called Church of Roswell that is kind of my passion project. And basically with this band, I'm doing all of the things that I've been told would never work and never to do, and it's all been working. So
when you've been doing making your own lyric videos and doing all this super hands-on stuff, and she'll text me and she'll be like, they liked it. I'm like, yeah, of course they liked it, it's great. And she's like, are they trusting my judgment? I'm like, yes.
You should do the same.
Yeah.
But you know, I think when you get into the industry so young, you don't always know how to choose your team. Kaylee and Todd are like the exception that proves the rule. Like, their relationship is so incredible, really. I mean, it's taught me a lot about what to look for in a team. And you don't know that you can ask the team, hey, what are your values? What do you believe? Do we align that way? You're just so happy someone wants to work with you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you get into a bad situation because you're out of desperation, honestly, speaking for myself.
This just popped into my head when you said a few minutes ago, you said you have to find your thing or whatever. I had an artist friend tell me one time, it's actually a male artist, but he went in and sat in front of a radio programmer on his radio tour, and the first thing the guy said to him was, so what's your gimmick?
And you're like,
right? Like, everyone has
but
to have one.
But that's such a thing. And then
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about you can get, when they're like, you got a couple years left, it's like, what do you do when age was your gimmick? It's, oh my God.
And talk, if you would, a little bit about, I mean, I mentioned that before, you knocked probably on every door in Nashville multiple times, and then you looked elsewhere, which I think is brilliant, and it worked out for you. Talk about that experience and why you decided that Teamwork was the right home for you.
I'm so thankful that every situation that I cried over a bottle of wine about didn't work out, and that I wound up in this place, because you said something about when you said this nobody wants me to see this dream come true. Is that what you said? And then having to redefine what your dream is, because for me, for the longest time, it was a very commercial, very middle of the road, but I don't mean that in a negative way, just meaning that very precise, polished country pop with a major label and all of these things, and shiny sequin dresses. And then I looked inside myself after, I was trying to do all the right things and it still didn't work. And I was like, oh, but that's not me at all. I have a Nirvana tattoo on my arm, because that was my first two bands I played in when I was in middle school were a bluegrass band and a Nirvana cover band. And you can't shake roots like that, that's why I'm here. And I think I just redefined what success looked like for me and what my career could look like. And because of that, I made this album Open Book that completely changed my life, and had the open mind to not see, having it not look like the way I thought it would doesn't mean it was a failure. It means that, I was able to be malleable and then find something way better because I was open-minded about it. But I had a situation happen on the Twitter last week where someone, actually a few different people made some comments about me being a country artist and signing with a New York label, and how that doesn't make any sense. And there's this very intense, people treat country as a genre like it's the intense purism. Is purism a word? No? No? Okay. Well, And you know what I mean, though, right?
I know.
Well, it's like
Close enough.
like being a purist. Yeah, but I couldn't find a way to make that happen. Anywho.
I totally get what you mean.
Yeah, you would. Yes, thank you. Okay, clarity. But and because I signed with someplace outside of Nashville, I must not be a real country artist. And I'm like, okay, well, and then I tweeted about it and ended up getting like a bunch of retweets and stuff. But I was like, well, I met with every one of them 3 times. They all said I wasn't ready, so I found someone who said I was. And now, but they also like my label. They work with Diplo, but they also work with Sturgill Simpson. So they have this really great depth to what they can do and this range for the artists that they work with. And I am so happy to have that be part of my team, because Nashville can be pretty narrow-minded sometimes. And if you're going through the machine, as you called it, they're going to try to apply the same rules to everybody, and it just doesn't work. So being able to be with a team who has that experience to understand that I could send this song to alternative radio, but I could also send this song to country radio, and I could play on this rock festival, but I could also still play Stagecoach. Like they're going to understand that, and I think that I'm going to have a way bigger and better career because of that, because no one's going to try to, be reductive. They're going to actually try to make me expand.
Plus, whoever's giving you grief on the Twitter.
I know.
It doesn't really understand.
I internalize it so much.
But it's funny that, like, okay, it says, Nashville in the name of the label, but it's owned by a company in Japan, or it's owned by a company in Germany, or, it's like, what does that even mean? Okay, it has a Nashville division, but it's not.
Yeah. Also, all their bosses are in New York.
Like, a lot of the major country artists right now, like, they signed in New York.
Yeah.
But they are with, like, Columbia, Nashville, but apparently it was like very much out of New York, and that's why it happened.
Can we all just agree to celebrate a female country artist who got an impossible record deal? It is so hard to do.
I know. I was like so happy, and I'm like, what song on to twitter.com and see what people are saying, and then I was like,
honestly, Kaylee, I think it's like really a positive sign that you you stir up stuff on Twitter or wherever.
I mean, that's like it too.
Not everybody gives a shit about any artist, but I feel like that means they care. So
that's very true.
In a backwards way. It means
in a backwards way, I got coronavirus back in March, and
that's not funny. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, it was the craziest thing, because it was at the very beginning of all this, and I was one of the youngest people in entertainment who'd had it at that point. This was back when it was just Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. And then I played a tornado benefit the week before quarantine and somehow got it. And my Twitter mentions that week were like, wow, her publicist must be doing a really great job because she has a song coming out. So thinking I lied about having COVID. And that was I had to really learn how to desensitize myself, because it was it was very wild. It was very wild.
You were one of the first people I knew to get it, but it's I was good on her. Just get it out of the way.
I was just trying to
earlier.
be hey guys, let me be careful because I'm young and healthy and I still got it. And people were like, she made it up for publicity. And I was like, oh my God.
I don't think any Nashville label would have ever let you put a song on an album called F.U. Forever.
Oh, so, no. And that's what got us in the New York Times and, made sure my ex-boyfriend never texted me ever again. I'm doing great.
I got a front row seat for watching Kaylee really come into the Kaylee Shore that we know and love today. Oh. And that was a really cool experience, and it helped me a lot, actually. Even though I'm older, I still have a lot to learn from you. Sometimes.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's pretty cool.
Ironically, that's the only song Candy and I wrote on my album together sober.
Yeah. Well, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, so I hope, But she would buy me these bottles of the cheapest wines. Now that I know that you're part of the Hollywood elite, I'm a little bit pissed off that you didn't at least go for a $10 bottle, or at least a nice box.
Next album, we'll be drinking Boda Box.
Okay.
You touched on something I think is interesting, which is, the genre boxes that we and I understand it from a business perspective. I live in that world. But from an arts perspective, it must be really frustrating, because I think if somebody listened to your album and they weren't told in advance, this is a country artist, they may not necessarily think that. And that's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. How does it feel to be sort of pigeonholed as an artist to you're one thing and you must be this one thing?
Oh, very frustrating. And I mean, there was this really great quote that I got to see Charlie Daniels get inducted into the Hall of Fame several years ago, and he said this thing that really stuck with me, because it's so easy to forget when you hear the purists talking about country and how it's like being ruined. This conversation happens every decade, every incarnation of country music. People are like, oh, I miss when it sounded like this back in the good old days. It's always about 20 years prior, and everyone's mad, but they don't understand that music also got criticized for not being country. And people now are like, I miss when it sounded like Charlie Daniels' band. But when he was out, everyone was saying like it was too rock and it wasn't country and it didn't belong on country radio. And so he talks about this in the interview, and he said, I always felt like if I sat down to write just a country song or just a rock song or just a pop song, I would miss 10 good ideas on the way there. And I thought that was so great, and it really stuck with me. And I mean, people said Dolly Parton was too pop, and and now those are the same people that purists are referencing when they're like, country music should sound like this. But it's just, it evolves, it grows. So does rock music, so does pop. Everything changes, and I don't know why this rule's being enforced in country or expected that we can't evolve and grow. And that's the best part about music, is seeing what happens next.
I've got to tell you this. I was laughing at what you were saying because it reminded me of this story. I put out a throwback song. It was a traditional country song. It was modern. Ellen played steel on it. It was really stripped back. It was called Cry Baby. And I put it up on Facebook, and I got ripped apart by several people who were very angry and said Patsy Cline would be rolling over in her grave at the way I covered her song. But I wrote it. It was my song. Patsy never sang it. I would have loved to have the cut, but that's not on the table. So people were furious at me for disgracing the memory of an artist that had never heard the song I was performing.
I would like to have seen the clapbacks on Twitter for that.
I took screenshots. I'll send you some.
Hilarious.
I had someone get angry in the Facebook comments of, I did this Dodge Ram commercial with Raylan and Daniel Bradbury, and they were like, these girls aren't even real country. They all have their personal assistants and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I did my makeup in my car that day. Like,
probably while you were driving to the car.
Literally, yeah.
The real country thing, like the genre, like it is a purist thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's the dumbest conversation. Yeah, because it's like, what makes an artist is all these influences, and I get really tripped up. Like in my head, I'm like, I can be like super analytical, and then I have to like detach in order to even make music, because sometimes you're like, okay, I have like 6 different opinions about this song or whatever it is, and like how should it be produced so that it fits here? But that's like the antithesis of artistry. And so like, I think what's really cool about country right now actually is that even though there's a lot of pushback, there's still a lot of progress with like new artists doing different cool things. And it almost reminds me of like hip hop, which I grew up on like a lot of hip hop, which people don't expect. But I grew up in Baltimore, and like the 2 biggest genres were hip hop and country, and the 2 biggest stations. So like, I feel like hip hop artists, they always had these like little cliques, and like various sounds would come out of those cliques. And I feel like Nashville is having that right now. Which I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I don't know. I see that kind of happening, which is super cool. Like artists aren't just doing this one thing. I mean, most of radio is, but I feel like there's all these sub-genres of country for the first time, which is kind of cool. I think
that maybe country radio is the subgenre. Because if you go, like, I write out in LA a lot, and I write a lot of pop songs because I started getting cuts over there because I wasn't writing bro country. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go write songs there. And they think that country music is Jason Isbell and Casey Musgraves and Sturgill Simpson. That's and occasionally Sam Hunt. Yeah. They don't know who these people on country radio are because it's so like internal and it's like
homogenized is the word.
Homogenized, that's a good word. And so like they don't know that, and to the general public outside of country, Casey Musgraves is the face of it.
Yeah.
And so, but within our sphere, it's easy to think like that she is the subgenre, but she's not. Right. That's what people think modern country music is. And then they listen to country radio and they're like, oh, all these guys aren't the same person? Okay. Like, it's really interesting.
But they're not?
Yeah, I know. Like, well, yeah.
Line them up.
I know.
There's been no proof as of yet.
It's funny.
I've never seen them all in the same
That's
room.
right. That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
They
It's
share
like
the
Janet
hat.
and Michael Jackson. Are they? Or are they the same person?
It's funny that country is the genre, maybe others, maybe rock as well, but that gets accused of, it's not country, I mean, you see the comments on, and it's like nobody looks at pop music and says, well, they're not playing Boy George anymore. It's not really pop music. That's a genre that's been allowed to move on, but for some reason country doesn't.
Oh, I miss the good old days. Where's Tears for Fears?
Well, this is a good opportunity to take another music break, and let's hear from Candy with Astronaut.
That's right, I forgot.
That was such a
I'm
good
going to
time.
sing my favorite Boy George cover today. No, I'm going to sing The Astronaut. This is actually a song that I performed for the first time at Song Suffragettes, and Brandy and I ended up picking this for my EP because of a video of that performance that I sent to her. So that was pretty cool.
What if Jesus came back years ago, and this is hell and we don't know? That's where we've been. Oh, what if the dinosaurs really died of hate and holy wars, and we're no better than them? What the hell is consciousness? How did we end up like this, staring wide-eyed at the endless sky? All I know is I will never know why. What would I do, who would I be, if I had more faith in me, and I got back all the time I wasted? Oh, trying to be someone else every time I left my house. And what if I'd never learned to fake it? Do I serve a greater purpose, or am I just nervous I'm gonna disappear when I die? All I know is I will never know why. Oh, where are you, God? Are you listening? I still believe in you. Do you believe in me too? Do you believe in me too? I wish I was an astronaut so I could just blast off into heaven and see behind the curtain. Oh, touch the hand that spins the stars and find out where my wishes are, and ask if anybody ever heard them. Maybe I'm too small to understand just how small I really am, but I think there's a reason we're alive. All I know is I will never know why. What would I do, who would I be, if I had more faith in me, and I got back all the time I wasted? Thank you.
Thank you, friends. That one. Great song. One of the things they wanted us to talk about today was creativity and how it impacts society. We've heard some great examples of great creative songwriting here today. I feel like that topic is broad and a lot to kind of wrap your head around. So I kind of wanted to ask you each, just for an example of a time that you felt like your songwriting, your music, touched an individual person and potentially changed their lives a little bit.
I think one of the most surreal things that's happened since I started releasing music is people will get tattoos of like my song lyrics, and that's so weird and bizarre, and it gives me this real drive to make something of myself, because I don't want to make any of these people have like a random girl's lyrics who now like works at a shoe store stuck on them for the rest of their lives. So that's where my mind goes immediately. I'm like, okay, I have to get famous, because if I don't, you're gonna look really dumb. Okay. But Fight Like a Girl really lent itself to that, and I remember meeting this mother and daughter on the road, and they both had Perfume Sweet and Whiskey Strong tattooed, and then this woman had like an entire sleeve of it, and I was like, that is so much real estate, like, you know, but it's so cool and such an honor. Another girl has lyrics to it in my handwriting, so Fight Like a Girl was a really, like, that was my first song, and that was a song that impacted people enough to do something like that. But one of the craziest stories was it was a highway find on Sirius XM, the highway, and that was where it really got its start. And I went into the studio, and I was co-hosting a show for them around the time that the song was on the station, and they played me a voicemail they'd gotten from this woman, and because it's XM radio, it's played all over the world, and there was this soldier over in Afghanistan, and she said that she listened to my song every morning when she woke up and every night before she went to bed. And she was like, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to play this for her, but I'd love for her to know that. And I'm just like, I'm about to go on air, and I'm like crying. Like, but like, yeah, that's like, and for me, like, you know, I wrote this song about country radio, but it's become so much bigger than that. And I've heard from, you know, women like her and women who've survived cancer and women who've left their abusive relationships, and it just makes the song so much bigger than what I originally intended, which I think is ultimately our goal for anything we create, is that it becomes something more than what we intended it to, and it kind of takes on a life of its own. So I was like, after I heard that voicemail, I was like, that is your song now? That is so much more your song than it is mine. But it's quite the honor. Yeah.
Great story.
That's a great story. Well, I ended up releasing, when I had my late record deal, a song called Burn the Bed. That was about my divorce. And I didn't really know if I was cool with putting that out. I actually didn't write that song for myself. I wrote it to pitch to Tanya Tucker. And she passed on it because it wasn't her story. Smart woman, it was mine. So it went to radio, it charted. It went to number 56 on Billboard. And I got some really amazing letters from women who had been through similar situations. Just felt happy knowing that they weren't alone in that. And I think that's what the best songs do. Not saying that mine was one of them. It only went to number 56. But I think that just knowing that somebody else has a shared experience is really comforting, even to the writer of the song.
It only went to 56 is not nothing.
I'm like, how many songs were released that day? Like,
well, you know, thanks.
I had a number 78, so 56 sounds real good.
I like the reference to my late record deal.
My late record deal.
I guess I've been through more than one divorce then, really, if you look at it that way.
The music industry is a lot like relationships.
Sure.
It really is.
Okay, so I think one of the moments was at Song Suffragettes playing Tenure Town for the first time. I had never felt a reaction of a room before to a song, and that was cool to feel like people really got what I was singing about all at once. But there are certain songs that I have trouble even like talking about what they're about, like in this setting. But when I look at like the YouTube comments, or like people, women specifically, will comment on this one song, and it's kind of like the first time they've heard someone sing about this topic, and like I feel like I have this like secret, like I'm passing some kind of secret note to people that need it, and so I won't even like talk about certain songs because I'm like, I can't, but you can listen to the song, and if you connect with it, great. But like it's funny, like some people do not connect with it at all, and then other people, it's like, oh my God, I'm going through this right now. And so like I feel like that means a lot when people are going through something that.
Can we know what song it is?
No.
We're just gonna have to find it on our own. Okay.
Respect.
Fair enough. Yeah, respect. That's right.
People
She
will
feels
really
seen, but
pour their
we
heart
got it.
out in the
Okay.
YouTube comments.
I wanted, we talked about some negative topics too, but I wanted to see if maybe we can end on a positive note. If there's any silver lining, are things improving in the music business?
We're still here doing it.
Yeah. I don't work at a shoe store yet, so.
This year, I mean, there's been a lot more women on the radio, but yeah, it does feel
Gabby
like
Barrett and Ingrid was a huge
That was
moment.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, this year, just in general, what is this year?
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think that having music as a comfort, being able to kind of pour, at least speaking for myself, how I'm feeling into some of these new projects, and having the freedom to work on the band. I'm not sure if things had gone differently this year, my band wouldn't be a thing. And we're going to radio in January, so I'm super excited about it. But this has kind of been a time of new beginnings, and I don't need anybody's approval. I'm okay. I have good people around me, and that's what Nashville does. If you come here without a family, you will have one in Nashville. You will make your group, and you will find your people.
I think that another thing is like, the more resistance you come up against and the more challenges, the more you have to be like, okay, that's not working. What can I do? And then you're like constantly looking for these outside of the box ideas. And like, Candy's band, if everything had gone easy for you, you would have never done that. And that band is amazing. Their song, The Witcher, is so great. I love that song. I listen to it all the time. And then you would have never started your own record label if you'd just gotten signed and, God forbid, shelved or put into some mold and whatnot, and been able to make that dream come true, like, before you even turned 30. That's amazing to be able to do that. And I, would have probably been, if everything had gone according to my original plan, probably would have been stuck putting out songs about beer and surface level things, and probably waking up one day and being like, oh no, my career isn't fulfilling. And I've been, given what I've had to come up against, I've had to, challenge myself, and ended up putting out Open Book, which just means more to me than anything. And if I'd had a label, they would not have let me make that record, hands down.
Absolutely not. And you would be singing that song about beer for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Can
At
you
least
imagine
once a day.
Can you imagine those songs that we wrote to impress people in the music industry if they had been hits and we would have had to sing them every day?
You know that song I wrote called Chase and Tailgate that I never speak of?
Don't ever speak of it again.
Yes. I'll speak of it, but I won't sing it for you.
Remind us again the name of your band, your new band.
It's called Church of Roswell,
Okay.
and it's not for everybody.
Fair enough. Well, I don't want to run out of time for our big finale, but these ladies are going to perform Time's Up for You, and I want to thank everybody.
Well, the context
Thank
of
you.
every Song Suffragette show ends with a cover song that everybody in the audience will know. So in keeping with that tradition, they're going to do
The
it.
only reason they know it is because you just played it
Oh,
for
that's
them.
right.
But
Well,
yeah,
fair enough. It's
but they
true
do.
then.
You're not wrong. Well, my name's Kaylee Shore,
I'm Candy Carpenter.
and I'm MOA.
and their names are easier to spell than mine, but hopefully they're on the screen somewhere. But thank you so much for having us. This has been really special, and it's always nice to get to play music anywhere these days. So thank you guys.
House.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I put on fake eyelashes for the first time this year. But this song is really fun because I don't get to play it out a lot, and we definitely, the three of us, have not played it together before. So it's like a little reunion. But this is Time's Up. Thank you so much.
Time's up for the ruthless, the wicked and the vain. Time's up for the cheaters, 'cause now the game has changed. It's been a long time coming, there's a new day dawning, gonna stop your running today. The wait's over for the patient, the humble and the brave. Now the way becomes the way it was. Yeah, you'll always lose when you fight in love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we've waited long enough. Our time is here, our time is now, our time has come. Your time is up. Time's up for the shadows, about to meet the light. for the castles built on sand and spite. Rome is burning, and one thing's for certain: the guilty are nervous tonight. We aren't waiting anymore for the moon to turn the tide. And now the way it is becomes the way it was. Yeah, you'll always lose if you're fighting love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we've waited long enough. Our time is here, our time is now, our time has come. Your time is up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking and the time's up. The scales are tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking, 'cause the time's up. The scales is tipping and the veil is ripping and the clock is ticking. Now the way it is becomes the way it was. Yeah, you always lose when you fight in love. They say good things come to those who wait, but we waited long enough. Our time is here, our time is now, our time has come. Time's up. We aren't waiting anymore for the moon to turn the tides.
Thank you.
We're done. Thank you, everyone.